Okay, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Council President Clark and members of City Council. I am City Controller Rebecca Reinhardt. Joining me today is Kellen White, First Deputy City Controller. I am pleased to provide testimony on the Controller's Office Fiscal Year 2019 operating budget. Our proposed operating budget for fiscal 19 is $8.9 million. As the independent auditor for the City of Philadelphia and the Philadelphia School District, the Controller's Office plays an important role in promoting the effective and efficient operation of government, identifying cost savings, and rooting out fraud, waste, and mismanagement. Since taking office this January, our office has taken steps to make accountability, transparency, and efficiency the guiding principles of our work for the benefit of every Philadelphian. We began by reorganizing the office into 4 core divisions: pre-audit, audit, investigations, and strategy and policy, and setting goals for the remainder of fiscal 18 and for fiscal 19. Pre-audit, which provides oversight of the city's payment and purchasing processes to prevent inappropriate spending and preserve the integrity of the public bid system, will monitor weekly reconciliation of payroll and develop strategies to ensure that city contractors are exercising best practices to achieve compliance with diversity commitments. Audit is responsible for completing major audits and reports as required by the Home Rule Charter. In the coming months, audit will transition to a risk rating model for the annual audit of every city department. This process will allow the auditors to devote more resources to departments that are not meeting appropriate standards. Additionally, audit will undertake performance audits more frequently and rigorously. Currently, staff is working on performance audits of the city's sexual misconduct payouts, policies, and procedures, and the Department of Behavioral Health and Intellectual Disability Services, the first such audit in 20 years. The Investigations Division will lead all special investigations and investigations into fraud, waste, and corruption across the city. As part of its efforts, Investigations will coordinate and undertake investigations in response to tips and other information that may indicate misconduct on the part of city employees, fraud involving city contracts, worker injury abuse, or other issues. The Strategy and Policy Analysis Division will focus primarily on financial policy, research, and recommendations, as well as modernizations, best practices, and cost savings. Our first policy analysis report on the 10-year tax abatement was released last week. A quick note, in our report on the tax abatement, we intentionally did not include a policy recommendation and instead presented and evaluated hypothetical policy changes. It's our goal to present information to support data-driven decision-making by Council and Mayor Kenny and to inform and engage the public with public policy through our analysis. Another focus for the Controller's Office moving forward is improving diversity and inclusion in both contracts and staffing. In December of fiscal 18, MWDSBE vendors contracted by the Controller's Office was 0%. Since taking office in January, we have already increased that to 10% and will continue to increase it throughout fiscal 19. Currently, the office as a whole is 56% minority, 55% female. Among exempt staff, our office is 59% minority. Lastly, my office is committed to transparency and making data more accessible to the public. As part of our efforts, we plan to release data sets and information on how the city spends taxpayer money and items of interest to the public. This is my first budget presentation as City Controller, and I want to take this opportunity to express my commitment to collaboration with City Council. It is my goal that the Controller's Office is a resource, providing valuable information, data, and audits that help move the city forward. Our office stands ready to work with City Council. This concludes my testimony, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony.
Sure.
Just got a couple of questions.
Sure.
One, starting with your participation rate in terms of diversity.
Yes.
So you give an overall number. Is there possible that you can provide us, to forward us a chart outlining?
Sure.
Yeah, it'll be a lot easier for us to do an analysis as we compare department to department.
Sure.
Including salaries, executive branch, the whole nine. Executive.
Absolutely. If you didn't get it, we'll definitely make sure that you have it. Okay.
You got a chart?
Yeah.
You have it? Okay, we didn't have it in our document. Thank you.
Sure.
So, When you talk about your role, and it actually kind of started under the last controller about policy as opposed to simply audit, being the chief auditor, kind of making sure that all the beans are counted and being spent appropriately. In terms of your policy agenda, do you think that you'll include recommendations, or do you think that that's your role, or that's within your jurisdiction, or is it simply outlining data that may give people an opportunity to develop policy? So exactly what's your
I
what's your
would
mission
say
as
the latter. So I think that my office can look at the financial data and present options based on that data. I think it's up to City Council to legislate, and up to the mayor to make the decisions on what policies you want to make going forward. What my hope and my goal is from having a division that looks at financial policy and strategy is to do some of the background work to enable a public discussion on those issues, and to have people be better informed. But I don't think, and that's why I purposefully didn't include a recommendation in the abatement report, because to me that's not the place of the controller. It's not my primary job.
Okay. Do you think that the mayor and the legislative branch of government don't have the capability of reviewing and analyzing data?
No, I mean, I think that you have complete capability. I think that, when I ran for office, I spoke about the need to have a unit just to crunch numbers and to provide data to the public as well. So I think I do intend to do that. I think it can be used. You can use it or not use it. And it's just something we will be doing in addition to the core function of auditing.
Okay. I mean, you're an independently elected official.
Yeah.
You can do what you want to do. I'm just, trying to get a sense as to whether or not you think that, we need assistance in analyzing data, or...
I mean, if you ever want assistance, we'd be happy to look at anything in particular that you want us to look at. But in the absence, of that, there are certain things that we might look at that we think, we can help in the public discussion.
Okay, so it's more for the public, not necessarily for us.
Unless you want to use it. I mean, you can if you want, but it's also for the public to provide data to the public, yes.
Okay, all right, I just want to clarify,
Yeah,
for the public's purpose, not for us. I mean, we kind of like,
Right,
we're pretty good at looking at numbers.
Okay, that's fine.
And determining, at some point what we ultimately
What you
do
wanna
with
do.
the data, and doing the analysis of whatever the particular category of interest is. So it's for the public, okay.
Yeah,
All
sure.
right, well, I just wanted
Okay.
to make sure. I didn't want you doing work for us that you have other things to do.
Right.
I know you got a lot of other things to do, so we're pretty good at putting
Okay.
together what we need. And I appreciate, the effort.
Sure.
There is you talk about your sexual harassment and the payouts for the sexual harassment. What do you think the city's current policy is on settlements? And I know a lot has to do with the law department.
I'm sorry, the policy on settlements? Is that what you said? The city has made multiple settlements over the course of the years, and the reason that I wanted to initiate the audit was because it seems that there needs to be a good review of how the city is handling sexual harassment in terms of reporting, in terms of how the cases are handled, and in terms of what's actually the settlement payments. If there's settlement payments being made out, I think that should be talked about, and we should be minimizing the risk of paying $1 of public money on those types of settlements.
Okay. You know what the number is?
Well, it's interesting.
What we've done over the
Yeah, because that was, that's been an area where, and this is part of the ongoing audit, but our office is collecting all of that data from the law department. It seems like it wasn't kept in one specific place, so they had to go back and look at all the different cases across different categories to see what they actually did pay out. I know a few big ones that were made public. There was the $1.2 million settlement in November or December of this past year related to the police department. Someone who's still on the job there, a settlement was made in that case. And there's others as well, but it's been actually incredibly difficult, and I think because of the way it's been kept by the law department, but actually to get the number. So that is one thing that we will disclose when the audit is finalized towards the end of May.
When you get it, okay. So over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of questions around whether or not the controller should and had the jurisdiction to audit parking authority, school district. What's your perspective on that?
So on the parking authority, and I've had multiple conversations with the state auditor general, Eugene DePasquale, because he did conduct an audit last year, and the city controller has the legal authority to audit the parking authority, but I wouldn't want to do anything duplicative of what the state auditor general already has done. So, and I'm actually meeting with him next week to talk through exactly, what he did, where his findings were, and if there's opportunity for my office to do something even with him. But on the parking authority, I do believe that the city controller has the right to audit. On the school district, the controller is the financial auditor of the district, and when the SRC transitions to a school board, our understanding from the law department is if the school board asks us to do a performance audit, the controller's office can do a performance audit of any aspect of the schools. The school board does need to...
You say only when, or?
Yeah, it's a little bit... the legal authority to do a performance audit of this school district is a little bit more murky than it is for the controller to do a performance audit of any city department. So as long as we're asked to do the performance audit, there's no murkiness. Absent that, there's a possibility that our office could do that, but it's less clear.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Sure.
Chair recognizes Councilman Don.
Thank you, Council President, and good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Councilman.
So most of my questions really aren't going to apply to you because you're new in the position.
Okay.
So, but I just have general questions that I wanted to get your response to. And I guess my concerns have to deal with something we've talked about earlier during this budget season, and that is the reconciliation of some of our accounts. And it came to light that we have two accounts, I think, that haven't been reconciled since 2010. And then in the last 6 months or 9 months, we opened a new account, which was reconciled. But we're going to go outside and spend $500,000 to hire people to reconcile those accounts. And I guess my question is, who's actually responsible, in your opinion, for reconciling the account, and who's responsible to supervise the reconciliation?
So what you're referring to, and it's a significant problem, is the fact that the city's payroll account, main payroll account, and several other bank accounts weren't reconciled from the end of 2010 until a few months ago. And not reconciling accounts is an inducement for wrongdoing. Okay. That is listed as a material weakness in the city's financial statements, one of 2 or 3 main ones. I did meet with Rob DeBoe last week on that and expressed the urgency in getting that resolved. Who is responsible? The treasurer is responsible, and it rolls up to finance.
So how did it go on for like 7 years where it wasn't reconciled. How did that happen? I know you weren't here, but I'm trying to figure out how that happened. Well, you were treasurer, though, at one point, right?
I was treasurer until November 2010, which is sort of when the reconciliation stopped.
Okay.
So, but, I mean, I think that, you would need to ask the finance director that question.
Okay, and the other question I have is in the CAFRA report from June of last year, it did indicate a $33.3 million discrepancy that said basically in simple terms, we're showing $33.3 million in our records, but we haven't seen it in our bank account. Do you know the status of that, or is that what the $500,000 is going for?
This is one of the other main material weaknesses and really concerning, honestly, more concern. I've said that there's some things that I expected in the job, but this actually is a little bit, I didn't expect this. So the $33 million, and is listed in a note in the city's financial statements, is also listed as a material weakness in the city's financials. And just, it's for those that don't have an accounting background, and I have a financial background, but I'm not an auditor, but a material weakness is a big deal. Okay, material weaknesses mean you're getting closer to having an audit, having books that you can't get an unqualified opinion on. Okay, so that material weakness, the $33 million, is the records do show, and this is very concerning, that the city should have $33 million more in the bank than it does. City doesn't know what that is. So that is why, and I think you talked about it in front of this body when the treasurer came up here, that is why the treasurer is hiring an outside firm, and I think there was $500,000 put in the budget, or that's what the proposal is, to have a firm go through that, to figure that out. To me, that's extremely concerning, and something that I will be bringing up in a public manner as we move into, there's something called an internal controls report that I put out, my office puts out in June, depending on how far if that's been reconciled or not, I will get much more public on that.
I'm trying to figure out, is the $33.3 million account different than the two other accounts that weren't reconciled?
Yeah, there's two separate issues.
Two separate issues.
So there's the issue of not reconciling payroll accounts and other accounts. So basically what that means is if the city sends a paycheck to someone and someone never cashes it, then that money is still in the city's payroll account. But that money really should be going to that individual. It's just that individual didn't cash that check, or, so we're likely holding money that should be escheated to the state as unclaimed monies. So that's one issue. The other issue is that our consolidated cash account, which is the main account that the city manages its operations out of, which has hundreds of millions of dollars in it, that account wasn't reconciled with the daily revenue report, which is the receipts received every day by revenue. That stopped happening as well. That side is where the $33 million problem is.
You're saying that we haven't reconciled an account that had hundreds of millions of dollars going through?
There wasn't getting daily reconciliation. What's supposed to happen is there's supposed to be a daily reconciliation with the amount of money that revenue says was deposited into the city and the amount of money that's actually in our bank account. That's supposed to be reconciled daily. That's what was not happening and has not, to our knowledge, been happening. I did have a meeting with the finance director and the treasurer recently. They said they're doing it now. They just hadn't been doing it for a number of years, so they don't know where the $33 million issue is. Look, this is significant. To me, it's like we need to fix those things, and they're serious issues.
How do we put in the controls, forget what happened in the past for a moment, how do we put the controls in place to prevent this from happening in the future?
I think that there needs to be more scrutiny and that scrutiny leads to accountability. So that, for example, I'm not, as controller, as auditor of the city, there's no way I'm letting up on that. There's just no way. Because that's just, I spoke to an auditor for one of the big auditing firms that I know, and he said he wouldn't even audit an entity like that. So I think that the important thing is that, every few months I'll be back saying what is going on. I spoke to the mayor about it last week. I said, this is really concerning. You need to, pay attention to this. It's not something that's sexy, but it's really important to taxpayers because it's money. It's taxpayer dollars.
It's really important now because we're asking taxpayers to pay more in taxes while we're not managing effectively and efficiently the current money that they have been paying us.
I would say that there needs to be improvement. I would agree with you, absolutely.
Yeah. Let me go on to another topic. I know we're experiencing, like we've never seen before, this opioid crisis, where I think Commissioner Farley told me there's over 1,260 deaths last year. And at the height of the AIDS crisis in the 90s, it was 950, which the opioid's clearly worse situation. And I know your department's looking into the auditing the Department of Behavioral Health and Intellectual Disability Services with a budget of about $1.7 billion.
That's right.
Do you have any idea when you'll have the results of that audit?
Sure. So that audit is ongoing, and it's expected to be completed, I would say, in the late summer, July, August timeframe. It's a lot. I mean, it hasn't had a real performance audit, a real look at how that money's being spent in close to 20 years. So if you look at, a budget of $1.6 billion, is that money going to help people in need in the best way possible? That's a lot of money. And is it going to actually the providers that are the most successful in terms of outcomes to help with addiction services or to help with the trauma of gun violence, right? I mean, so there's several, main issues that we need to be looking at if it's doing the best. So I got a little carried away there. It's supposed to be done July and August.
Okay. Another question for you. Projects you have in the works that could lead to more government efficiencies and cost savings, could you give me an idea of, by dollar potential savings, starting with the highest numbers first, what 2, 3, or 4 ideas you might have that we could save some money in the city?
Sure. So I think that there's a lot of different areas and that the city could be improving upon to do better and to save money or to collect more revenue. I think that there's a few of the bigger ones. I think revenue collection in certain areas can be, especially some areas that haven't been looked at as much, like non-tax fees and fines, back due fees and fines. That's something that that's on our radar of a chunk of money that is due, and we have to, of course, figure out a way to do it so that it doesn't provide, do undue hardship, but there are people and businesses that just aren't paying because they know they can get away with it. I think, there's the big question, and I know it's been raised in this room about the prisons department and the prisons budget. It is, to me, very intriguing or sort of strange to me that there's not a double-digit decrease in their budget, given the decrease in census. That's something that is on our short list to possibly do a performance audit on. So, and then if there are ideas that you all have that you think, okay, this area, this function of the city, we really think it could be done better, we're also open to having that dialogue to focus in on performance audits, because the goal is to do a lot more performance audits than in the past.
Okay, I'm glad prisons is on there, by the way. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Blackwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. We want to thank the controller. Before she was even elected, she offered her assistance, help, her willingness to look into things, to do research where we needed it. We know many of her people, Mr. White and others who've been there already, who are good folks, and we just look forward to a great relationship as we move forward. This is interesting, this new program she's coming up with. Mr. President, I appreciate your questions as to how that affects us, because that was important and good to know. And again, we say thank you, Madam Controller.
Oh, thank you, Councilwoman. It's wonderful to be back here.
Thanks. Thanks, Mr.
Good,
President.
Councilman. Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Reynolds Brown.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon,
to these
Councilwoman.
proceedings in your new role. Of course, I've been reading this document very, very carefully. I'm pleased that you brought it and we don't have to ask you to submit it to the chair.
Oh, sure.
So thank you for that. I am struck by the last page of your testimony where you say you've increased the diversity and inclusion in contracts by 10%. So can you just elaborate on that more?
Sure. So the percentage...
Forgive me, increase that to
10%, which is
yes.
still way too low.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. So coming into office, the Controller's Office, as of December fiscal 18, had 0% participation on the contracts, which is obviously something that that I want to fix and remedy. And I think, yes, we've gotten it up to 10% in the few months we've been here by the only contract that, or one of two contracts that we awarded, being a woman-owned firm. And I think what we're going to do, we're going to use the next few months to go through all of the vendors and see where is their opportunity. And, you know, the goal of the Controller's Office historically has been 5%. So I lifted it to 10% right away just because 5% is too low. 10% is way too low. So I think as we go through it, I'd like to see a goal of, 25 or 30%. 25 or 30%. I mean, so, and you can, hold me to that. I think that it was sort of shocking to me, honestly, to see the 0.
Thank you for the leadership on righting that ship.
Sure.
In the absence of Councilwoman Sanchez, I know that she would be thrilled and standing on her tippy toes to learn that a deeper dive will be taken with regards to the Department of Behavioral Health and Intellectual Disability Services. So I too will join she and others who are looking forward to the yield of that report.
Thank you.
I don't remember the exact language. I do recall that you had a perspective and a view around the soda tax. So can you help us just refresh my memory what it is and how you arrived at that conclusion?
Sure. So one of the things that's important to me and something I spoke about when I was running for office is making financial information more accessible to the public. And one of the things I also noticed in going to different community meetings across the city was that one of the big questions that people had was, what's going on with the soda tax, right? And so my office is going to put out financial information monthly on a different topic. So if you have a topic that you're hearing from your constituents, like that they're asking about, we have people in our office that can dig and actually, sort of put information out for you.
Okay.
But in terms of the soda tax, the soda tax was very straightforward release of information from the city's accounting system, which is how much money's been collected in fiscal 17 and fiscal 18, and how much of it has been spent on the 3 programs that it was implemented to spend. And what that showed is that the vast majority is still in the general fund. And my position, I supported the soda tax because I support pre-K, and I support the programs that it's meant to fund. I also think people deserve to know, that the majority of it hasn't, been spent yet.
Okay.
And that was, the release of that information.
Okay. All right, then. Thank you. Thank you
Sure.
for your testimony, and
Thank you.
to you and your new team.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman Taubenberger.
Thank you, Council President. Ms. Reinhardt, one, congratulations, and also
Thank you.
I want to thank you for being in office such a short time and being so available and accessible, to my staff.
Yeah, thank you.
That means a lot. A question, continuing on with the soda tax. So I get it clear in my brain. it is currently mostly going into the general fund, or is it being held in abeyance in another account, sort of like escrow, I guess, if you would?
Well, no, the majority's in the general fund.
So then being spent, however,
So this was so the mayor has said that it's being held until the lawsuit is completed, held in the general fund.
held.
So my point and view on that is, well, it should be put into a separate, even a subsection of escrow or something, so that people can clearly see that money.
I think most people would understand that a lot better. I mean,
Right.
government sometimes can be very complicated, and I think some of the frustration with the public is they just don't understand, and it's never explained properly to them. So
Right. No, I mean,
I would agree with you.
Yeah.
That it should maybe be in a separate account that we can say there's X amount of dollars. And, well, I guess we could say that. Could they give you a number, what is being held, or is this all being put in one giant pond?
Well, according to the accounting system, it's just a giant pot, and then
Wow.
it's commingled with the rest of the general fund. So I think that the best practice would be to, and I'm not saying that anything wrong is going
I
on.
understand.
There's nothing
I'm
wrong.
not asking for that.
Right. It's just about, best practice. I mean, even if you think about, your checking account at home, right? I mean, if you're saving for like a special project and you leave it in the general checking account and not in the savings, you might spend it on something else, right? I mean,
It could easily be done. And actually with the history of misplacing, or what seems to be misplaced, $30 billion, it gets the, public at large saying,
yeah, I mean, and I think there needs to be accountability. I mean, it's people's dollars, it's people's money going to pay the tax, and we'll continue to update the information so that people know where their money's going. And I think that's part of one of the things I'm very focused on, which is making sure that we really respect people's tax dollars for what they are, people's money.
Correct. In the paperwork that you have given us, you have some job positions that are budgeted. For example, the number of full-time positions budgeted for 140 and filled 123.
Mm-hmm.
Is that purposely being held down until you find what you need, or can you explain that?
Sure. So actually, when I came in January, we reduced the budgeted positions down to 134.
Okay.
That's our internal number. And we reduced the number of exempt employees and are hiring on the audit side, which is civil service, to beef up the audit function. So I would say that there's about 11 vacancies now. There's a few in investigations and then the auditing positions.
And these 11 vacancies then would be, or that you're going to fill, I guess two questions I have is, approximately when would you fill them?
As soon as possible.
Okay.
So actually there's,
that's good enough.
on the auditor side, I think there's a test being given May 7th, so we'd hope to have them all filled by the summer.
And they're all, they will all be civil service?
No, there'll be a few on the investigator side that won't be, which is, but we're ramping up on the civil service and reducing the total number from how it was before. There's going to be fewer exempts and more civil service.
Very good. Thank you on that. And one last question. You had said just recently in your testimony, like a couple of moments ago, that you would welcome comments or topics from us that you would like to...
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would really like to have the financial policy and research unit in the controller's office be able to look at issues for you all too.
So if a memo to you then would help suffice that?
Absolutely.
Very good. I think that's an excellent idea, and once again, a compliment on how well you're working with us. I thank you very much.
Thanks.
Council President, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Heenan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Mr. President. Welcome to the city budget.
Thank you,
All right,
Councilman.
You're no stranger for being on the chair there, but in your new position, we do really take that in consideration, but enjoy your enthusiasm and
Thank you.
And I think your focus, right out of the gate. So welcome as our
Thank you.
controller, which certainly rises to a different level of questioning and scrutiny, which I'm sure you welcome. I promise not to be Columbo like my colleague, Mr. Tottenberger, and I'll get my questions out. It's a joke, Council. So over the years, there's been this talk about the underground economy, people not paying taxes, city departments not working, together. So I think just from your testimony and from what I gather, you've made a better effort to work with the city's revenue department and other departments to really hone in on, some of these either uncollectibles and or money, that is being left on the table that's out there by people that aren't abiding by the law and going through the processes.
Absolutely.
So how has those efforts been going in your short and brief moment as controller?
Sure. So in the Revenue Department, we've had 2 meetings with the Revenue Commissioner. The goal there on this topic would be to be able to work together and sort of push revenue in certain aspects of this and work together. We'll also, we have a new deputy for investigations, Terry Domsky, who's here, and she'll be working with revenue as well as L&I on some of those work sites. We actually had a meeting yesterday with some of those in the trades about that. So that is an area of focus. And if there's work sites that, and there are, is what I've been told, and pretty convincingly, that there are numerous work sites in the city that are being done underground, meaning that they're not paying tax, they're not getting licenses. And if that's the case, that's money that the city should be getting in before we start, talking about raising taxes. So I'm committed to that, absolutely.
That's great. And I think it's, including Department of L&I.
Yes.
All right, because
a lot of it's there.
A lot of, and I know that they're in the middle of an audit program right now, so you may want to kind of, jump in and get briefed on, what they're auditing internally themselves for administrative review, because to me, I think if there's an habitual offender that is actually caught, then they're economic crimes, right? Which is having an adverse effect to our general fund. When we're trying to fund our schools, we're trying to make sure that, some of these programs are sustainable, without trying to catch me if you can. And I think that could be in the millions a year.
I agree.
Per year. And I would say put us in a better position where nothing's predictable, right? Because, the economy, the ebbs and flows, but you could make it, I think, some, professional assumptions in an actuary aspect if we crack down and try to, treat everybody equal.
Absolutely.
Abide by the law. So I know you did, you put out a report, and, it seems to be, well, it's in depth, so thank you for that. And it is somewhat of a controversial issue here in the city, in this body, and I guess, some would say in other stakeholders or interest groups, about the 10-year tax abatement. And, I think, we as a city are doing our due diligence, right? And you are doing your due diligence right out of the gate by analyzing that. And, just like City Council, our council president is, we are taking a look at the city's metrics on the OPA evaluations.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. So, I mean, having an 11% increase in 1 year and then balancing it off over, for 3 years, well, if we're going to have an 11, AVI was meant to see a gradual increase, so it's less burdensome. The Federal Reserve Bank also did a quick review of the 10-year tax abatement here and found that even as the property values and tax roses in the past 2 years, longtime residents stay in their neighborhoods. Did you find that?
Say that one more time, that even as...
That long-term residents stayed in their neighborhoods, in large in part because of the protections that we as a policymaker here, understand that, like with Loop.
Those are great
and
programs.
And programs to keep people in houses. I like that you have options right there. But this is going to be something I think that we're going to be taking a look at. I personally believe in a 10-year tax abatement. In your opinion, if we eliminated it, how devastating would that be on the economy?
Eliminate it altogether?
Altogether.
I think from what the report that my office shows, which is that the vast majority of the city still has unprofitable building economics, I think that would be very negative.
Right. As do I. Now, as we have the option, so we introduce bills all the time, right, in the city, in council, and I think we're being a lot more conscientious on the fiscal impact of each bill. And we, along with Councilman Dom, has been a staunch proponent of, trying to find out, how come we're not recovering our water and sewage?
Oh.
Right? I guess that's out there in the tunes of millions. I'm sure the councilman will. Could you take a look at that and see what our process is, where we fall short on the collectibles with our own water sewage?
I know that the numbers are high on uncollected for water and sewer, and it's something that's sort of on the list. I think that getting better at collecting those could impact and could create the less of a need for significant rate increases.
Right.
And so that is important to look at. That we haven't gotten to that yet in my office, but it's on the list.
I mean, if you could take a look at, I'll give you an example. I'm having and that could be a small part of the entire, how we're doing on our delinquencies, and we can break it down. Because, I'll give you an example. Tonight I have a budget hearing, public budget hearing. There's a lot of angry people out there.
Yeah, I know.
All right, and, with the water rate increase and the proposed school district increases, which, our schools have fallen victim of underfunded, fair funding for our education. And, we have to be, we're the ones that are out there on the front line, and then then we have conversations about 10-year tax abatement. If you could take a look at legislation that we do sometimes that might have a fiscal impact, and take a look at that and see where it is. I'm getting, Mayor announces that he's going to close the prison because we're doing a good job with the MacArthur grant and the criminal justice reform. I'm receiving calls on that, and people just don't understand it. I'm receiving calls on anything that comes through our body, all right, when they think that the 10-year tax abatement is for the rich, all right, and that's not necessarily true. I think there's a small percentage of people who actually, take advantage of the 10-year tax abatement that have over $1 million,
Right.
It's a small
It's
number.
a small percentage.
But it's a fallacy, or it's what people think, and then we have all these other increases, and the council president just introduced something a couple of weeks ago, taking a look at the housing trust fund and the 1% privilege construction tax, and we're not sure what impact that's going to have for every resident or nonprofit in the city of Philadelphia. So if you could take a look at that would be helpful.
The 1% construction tax bill? Is that
Yep.
okay.
And please continue on the path with the behavior health. the mental, in the COAs. We've had ongoing resolutions that, and hearings that are out in the neighborhoods in here, and it's all tied to, as Councilman Dom said, the opioid epidemic, and how are we treating properly? Are we getting the most effect, all right, and efficiencies out of our resources and spending? So
Absolutely.
just do your job.
Thank
all right?
you.
And, I think we'll begin, continue the conversation as we move forward. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Don.
Thank you, Council President. I had a couple more questions for you.
Okay.
When you did your tax abatement report, I assume it didn't take into account the potential legislation that was introduced on the 1% construction tax?
No, it did not. We hadn't
Okay.
been asked to look at that, and it doesn't, no.
Okay. Second question. Do you think that the controller's position should once a year, remember this has nothing to do with you because you weren't in this position, but do you think the controller should be required once a year to review all accounts of the city to make sure they are reconciled?
Well, yes, and the reason that this has been an audit finding, to give credit to the auditors in the controller's office over the last few years, this has been an audit finding in the city departmental audit for a few years, and it just hasn't gotten the traction and been elevated to the level that it needed to be. So I will absolutely do that, absolutely.
So the prior Controller Buckovitz, did highlight this and did bring it to the attention, but it just didn't get resolved?
I mean, I don't want to opine on him. I'd rather look forward and say that I intend to, I'm not going to let up on this, and I think that we need to improve our financial books. It's sloppy at best, and it's an inducement to waste and corruption, honestly.
But he was the one who probably pointed it out and made it occur in the CAFR report on page 151. So you got to give him some credit, I guess, for that he did point it out that it was 33.3 million on our books and not in the bank. So that was good, but we should have. This is what bothers me from my heart. If I'm in business with somebody and someone gives me a report that we're short $33 million in the bank, that night we're looking into it. Where's that money?
Right. There's a sense of urgency around it.
Yes.
I mean, I think there is a sense of urgency often in business, and I think there's a culture change that needs to happen in the financial management of the city.
Okay.
Yes.
I have a question on the beverage tax. Do you have any data or indication of the number of jobs lost or the revenues that we've lost since we've implemented the beverage tax? Is there any data?
I know there's been various different studies, sort of warring studies
Right.
on that.
You hear from one side who is against the tax that we've lost the world,
Right,
and the side that's in favor of the tax, we've lost nothing. I'm trying to find what the truth is.
right.
Yeah. Okay.
Probably somewhere in the middle.
Only reason why I bring that up is because it might be, if there is any facts that we have lost jobs, and if there are any facts that we have lost revenue, there might be some elasticity point where taking that 1.5 cents, for example, to 0.9 might not have people drive over the line. We might capture that business and still have the same revenue. I'm not looking to decrease our revenue.
I see what you're saying.
I'm looking to increase it for the businesses in Philadelphia.
You're talking about lowering the tax enough so that it doesn't incent, the person that's living near the county border doesn't go across the border.
Yes. Like, at what point do I not get in my car and drive over the border? Because we don't just, if that's happening, I don't know if it's happening, but if it is, we're not just losing beverage, we're losing the whole shopping
Yeah, no, I know it's
experience.
happening, but.
Yeah. So we should, that would be something I would love for the controls office to look at to see, and if you can make a recommendation, because I think if we can get the same revenue, I don't think any of us are going to care if we go and lower the rate. I think that would actually help citizens of the city and all of our small stores and big stores.
Yeah, it's a
I'd
good
rather
idea.
keep the business in Philadelphia than go outside of Philadelphia.
That is a good idea. We'll look into it.
Okay. Just want to give you a data point that I learned about last week, because I know you talked about the prisons.
Okay.
They said that 2 years ago, the population was 8,200. They also said that their prison guards were, I think it was 2185 was budgeted.
Okay.
And they said this year the population, which is great, 54, 51, down 32, 33%. But the budget for guards was 2284, so they actually did cut one guard. But they cut 2,750 less people. Now, and here's my point on this. I think Commissioner Carney's doing a good job. I think she needs support financially, like a CFO or somebody, to help her figure this out. I'm just mentioning so because she's going to study it.
Okay.
Credit rating. Our credit rating went down slightly. Do you have any comments as to what we can do to improve the credit rating?
I mean, I think that there's a few things. The major financial risks are the city's relatively low fund balance, the financial reserve, the pension fund, the high poverty rate, all the things that you're all trying to tackle. I think that and I haven't been part of those discussions with the rating agencies, so I don't know exactly what they're saying, but I do think it's important to show, financial strength and improving reserves at a time when the economy is doing so well.
Well, the administration has a plan. I think Rob DeBoe has a plan to get us, I call it the road to 80%, okay?
I'm sorry, get where?
It's the road to 80%.
Oh, the
13
pension?
or 14, the pension. And has your department looked that over and blessed it, for example? Because if your department did, as an independent body, and blessed it, maybe that will help us in the bond rating area.
Well, as controller, I sit on the pension board, so I don't have, we don't have audit authority over the pension board since I sit on the pension board. But that number, the 80%, there's a lot of assumptions built into it. There's the assumption of the assumed rate of return being 7.5% every year. There's a lot of assumptions.
Will your department be looking into that to see if those assumptions are something we can rely on?
Yes, I mean, as a member of the pension board, the investment strategy and the assumptions is something that we're actually going to be spending a good amount of time on. I think it's extremely important that we get the investment strategy right, as well as the assumptions, absolutely.
I have one last question. It's an opinion question for you.
Okay.
I know Montgomery County did this very well, and I know that we've talked about it, but it hasn't really happened, and that is zero-based budgeting. What we have is, I think, program-based budgeting. Is your opinion that zero-based budgeting would help us or not really help us?
Well, I don't know if we're actually doing program-based budgeting right now, but I would say that.
So which budgeting are we doing right now then?
We're doing like year-over-year budgeting.
Okay. Okay, so.
Zero-based budgeting is, or performance-based budgeting are ways to get at tying each dollar to service delivery outcome. And zero-based budgeting basically means that the department has zero until they get $1 from you, right, as the city council. So they don't come in with what they got last year. I think either true performance-based budgeting, true program-based budgeting, or zero-based budgeting are all tools to get the same thing, which is to re-examine how the city is spending its money, because there's areas of waste. There absolutely is.
And do you think it would be something we should embark on gradually, zero-based budgeting?
I think that I wouldn't make a distinction really between the value of zero-based budgeting or performance-based budgeting, because they're both getting at the same thing. I think that would it be better if there was a stronger movement towards that? Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for your
Thank you.
answers. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Heenan.
Thank you, Council President. Just a couple follow-up questions. I think my colleague, Al Toltenberger, was talking about the sweet sugar beverage tax and the monies collected. it's my understanding that it's going to a fund reserve right now and being held in the general fund. There has been some spending. There's been no allocation on rebuild because we haven't gone through our process yet. We've done some early pre-K seats. All right, so we spent a little bit there, but for the majority, and community schools, but for the majority of the monies that are coming in, it's being held in a fund reserve, solely and restricted for sweet and sugar beverages and programs. So that is what the finance department is telling. Which we're being told. But we know.
It's not really.
But we know internally here through appropriations where monies are being spent and where they're not being spent.
Absolutely.
All right. So through appropriations and midterm or other appropriations, we have the opportunity publicly to see that and ask those questions in a public and transparent way. Would you agree with that?
I would agree that overall you have that ability.
Overall.
Right, not for the specific revenue stream of the soda tax, but overall you do, absolutely.
Overall. But so they're saying it's not being spent, right? They put a hold because of the lawsuit. And so I just don't want anybody who can't be here. I know the council president is big on saying not everybody can come down to City Hall, but a lot of people watch it. If they're watching it now or they're watching it later, we want to kind of be careful, all right, on what we say. So it's not a black hole where money is going to be spent on pencils or anybody's favorite program or something else. That I think the administration is very mindful of its spending and or not spending of the collection of our sweetened sugar beverages. In addition, I heard where I read somewhere that a Wharton professor said that the rate of return, the council was talking about people going outside the city, in the first year, you have a 15% fluctuation of above or beyond of any new tax in the city. So I am sticking up for the administration on this because I voted for it. All right, that we're within that range of 15% for the first year, and it has been assumed out in the 5-year plan. If you, as controller, would monitor that would be great because that actually backs us up. But that's, what has been given to us, and that's what we're going to assume as we move forward. And we're all watching it closely in anticipation of, the legal action that has been taken.
Right, absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. There appear to be no additional questions. So with that, I want to thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
And
Appreciate
again,
it.
congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And more importantly, good luck.
Thanks.
All right, have a good day. This committee will stand in recess until Tuesday, May 1st, 2018 at 10 a.m., at which time we will reconvene in room 400, City Hall. Thank you all very much.